Welcome back to episode 20 of Past the Balance Sheet. Thank you to our dedicated listeners. Today, in celebration of our milestone, we want to revisit where we have considered going and give our loyal audience a say in that as well. We took a look back in episode 13 of our first dozen. We reflected, we shared some messy behind the scenes, and shared our thoughts for the next batch. This episode is more about that forward looking angle. We've heard some feedback in both directions. So, in this episode, we're going to have an impromptu, juicy conversation that allows you guys to get some buy in. All right, Miss Cash. Great to see you again, my friend.
Yeah, it's great to be back.
And
Episode 20.
I'm so excited for this episode because this is our milestone episode and it's going to have less formal structure as we're kind of brainstorming what this next chunk of chapters looks like. And so I'm excited to dig in. But first, Cash, you always wow me with the stats of our listeners. So will you please enlighten us on how many folks have engaged with us in the first 3 months? And
Yeah,
do we know anything about our listener base that you can share with us?
we do know some. I think we talked about this before. One of the reasons that we chose Riverside is definitely not for the technical difficulties we've had the last couple days. But for the analytics, we are both analytical people and we were able to see some real-time analytics. This was as of so we're recording just to give people some light. Today is May 28th. This is episode 20. Episode 15 went live earlier this week. So we have about 4 to 5 in the tank. So by the time this goes live, we'll have about another month's worth of data. But as of today, through 15 episodes, we have had a total of 765 streams, which is an average of about 51 listeners per episode. We have had 45 in the last 7 days and 12 in the last 24 hours.
Nice.
Our best episode was episode 3 with 91 streams.
What was that one about?
Um, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And that wasn't even like when things started getting
Yeah.
good,
Yeah.
which we'll talk about in a little bit. So episode 3 was our best with 91 streams. Riverside is interesting. So we get analytics on where people are listening. When we first started, I was a little hesitant to go on YouTube. And I
Mhm.
had a conversation with someone who said, actually, YouTube is where most people are getting their podcasts because it's where they're getting their TV or whatever. And so it's a one-stop shop.
Mhm.
And that has actually been true. So 28% of our listeners are coming from YouTube, 13% are coming from Apple, 5% are coming from Spotify, and 54% are coming from quote unquote another app. It doesn't tell me what app, but they're listening from
Hmm.
somewhere else, which what I'm guessing is if anyone takes our RSS link and puts it on a website, I know that the podcast is on my website, and it is kind of embedded in some other areas. So
Mhm.
if they listen to it via that link, it is
Mhm.
kind of bucketed in there.
Gotcha.
As far as like geographic, I've kind of been tracking this because I'm always curious like where people are listening from.
We
I
can
know we have
tell.
had some people from Germany over the time. They did
Whoa.
not land in the top 10. Our top 10 countries, so 56% is coming from the US. But the next 9 countries in where our listeners are coming from are Hong Kong, Singapore, Japan, Vietnam, China, Bangladesh, Iraq, Brazil, and India. India is very interesting to me because it is a huge financial area of the world. A lot of financial infrastructure comes from India. And so it's actually kind of exciting that we are being listened to there. I think it brings a little bit more credibility to us that some of the most powerful people in FMP are actually out of India. So Um,
Dang, I was
yeah.
not expecting outside the US. Like, it's so amazing that you can see these stats. Do you think that like VPN scrambling has anything to do with this? Like, if people are kind of not um, um, if they're logging in from not their local VPNs, but
It could be. The other thing too that just actually came to mind is coming from, a lot of my corporate career was spent in manufacturing, specifically in the food industry.
Mhm,
And a lot of our food actually comes, a lot of the raw ingredients come from China, come from India.
mhm,
Um, and I was very involved in that. And
mhm.
so I am very active on LinkedIn
Yeah,
and I do post our
mhm.
episodes
Yeah, you
almost
do.
every week. And so there could be, it could be a
Mixture.
combination of scramble, but it
Mhm.
also could be, a lot of my network is
Yeah.
international.
Yeah. Awesome. Oh, wow. That's amazing. One of my friends is in Austria, and he was giving me some inputs. So, but but that's crazy. I didn't realize that other folks outside of the U.S. are listening. That's amazing. Thanks for sharing.
46% is coming outside of the US.
It's insanity.
Yeah,
Oh
interesting.
my god, amazing. Um, So, thank you, Cash, for sharing about our listeners. That is intriguing, exciting. I want to know more,
Me
and
too.
can't wait to like compare this data over time. That's another geek part of our of owning this
Mhm.
partnership. Is yeah, can't wait to geek out on the data. But in any way, let's take the next part of our conversation and do a little bit of questions back and forth, kind of
Yeah.
talking a little bit about our journey before we head into the forward looking. Just a little touch on the past. I know we've touched on some of our bloopers, some of our behind the
Mhm.
scenes where I lost our like 5 episodes of our data and all of that. So you guys are familiar with that. But um, let's start with, and looking back at our journey, which episode felt like this is the show for you?
Hmm. I don't know if it's one specific episode, but when we first started this, I'm going to answer kind of two of these questions at the
Hmm.
same time. When we first started this, we said we wanted it to be unscripted. We said we wanted to really go behind and talk about the things that are true in business that people aren't willing to talk about or to bring normalcy around it. And when we started, we have been very transparent. We are not podcasters. And we did script it. Like, we
Hmm.
had the meat and potatoes, but we were so, I don't know, nervous
Hmm.
about what it would look like to be fully unscripted. And when we made that shift, that first episode, from the shift was that felt the most intentional to me
Hmm.
and the most
Hmm.
fun and rewarding. I walked away feeling like that was really fun. I want to do that again.
Yes.
But then the feedback that I got when that one went live
Hmm.
was that made me feel like, okay, we made the right decision and this really could do something and help people if we
Hmm.
continue on this track. What about you?
You stole mine, lady. Well, honestly, it's because I feel like both of us really felt like, okay, we did something different. We took that feedback of like, okay, guys, you said you'd be unscripted, but you're still reading like the first part of it.
Yeah.
And so, like, when we kind of switch things up and we're, kind of naked in front of our, like, vulnerable in front of our listeners, and we're like, hey, guys, I'm gonna do things a little differently, and if I'm not mistaken, I feel like that episode, like, we talked about some AI stuff, and like,
Mhm.
I love talking about AI. That like, there's so much I've discovered since that last conversation. That I mean, AI is changing right before our eyes, and as you know, I'm working on a software, and the recent developments with AI have been so amazing to help me
Mhm.
actually like finish the darn project. So Yeah, that one was, I feel like there was a lot of, in your words, meat and potatoes that were just so relatable to other people, just,
Mhm.
outside of finance as well.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Which episode would you redo now that the rhythm has kind of found its rhythm?
Um, I don't know that I would redo one specific one, but there were a few episodes where I'm like, I have had like cringe moments or like, oh, why are you doing this? Why are you saying this? Like, so like, and this is a part of, I have to like be prepared, like, okay, I'm gonna listen to our past recordings and I have to kind of go in with like, don't judge, don't be so judgy, like it's gonna be okay. But I always come up with like, oh my God, why did I say this? Or what where I have the most anxiety is like if um I it all makes sense in my brain, but my words are slower to catch up. And I feel like
Mhm.
in a first of our few first episodes, I said something like where it to a listener who is not like who knows finance, they're like, okay, this is what she meant. Okay, and then she kind of elaborated on the point of that in the next
Mhm.
sentence. So I'm following. But to a new person, like if they didn't catch that I said an important nugget a few moments later, then they might be interpreting my data like basically like what I'm saying is nonsensical, and they would be like, "Well, wait, this doesn't make logical sense." So I tend to beat myself up. I'm like, "Oh, you should have worded this differently. This is confusing."
Mhm.
And so there's a few instances of that. There was one episode, and I can't remember. Like, I want to say it's somewhere around like 10 to 12, something like that, where like, I looked half asleep, like, my eyes were, like they were seriously closed, like, I do remember having one day where I think you and I were, like, chugging coffee like nobody's
Yeah.
business, and we were both, like, really tired. It may have been one of those, but, like, I looked like a fried vegetable, and I'm like, "How do you expect to be, for others to engage if you're half asleep?" So I do have, like, those. I wouldn't redo a full episode, but I have little things where I'm like, "Why did you do this?" There was one where I said the complete opposite of what I was trying to say. Like, I was finishing, like, recapping your thought,
Mhm.
but I said, like, the exact opposite thing of what I was trying to say. So it's those things that stress me out. And then there are like sometimes you catch me off guard with the personal questions. And so I'm like, oh my God, is this one about like is my family gonna take this the wrong way? Like this one.
Mhm.
So they're just like I wish that I would say things in a different way or like, well, that's out of the bag now, So I kind of
That's
get that
funny.
anxiety sometimes. How about you?
I don't know, like you said, like, I don't know if I would redo anything, same things. Like, there's days that, um like, because we've talked about this, AJ edits the
Mhm.
podcast for us, but there's days that he'll come out and he'll be like, "You look like you were so disinterested," or, "You looked like you were tired," or whatever,
Mhm.
and it's never that. Like, I'm always so grateful to be here. This is actually one of my favorite things. I think you and I
Good
talked
to
about
hear.
this week. Like, I have so much on my plate right now,
Mhm.
but I'm a very intentional person. And so the things that are on my plate are all very important to me.
Mhm.
And I'm in a place where I'm like, I can't relinquish any of them because I don't
Mhm.
feel like I've finished what I need to finish to do
Yeah.
it. But I also feel like it's probably brought with me here. Like you said, like the days that I'm tired and I'm chugging coffee,
Mhm.
I wouldn't not want to be here, but I think that that also is the realness of we're business owners.
Mhm.
We're doing we're we're going through the trenches with the people that we're trying to target in this. And so there's a level of it that I wouldn't change just because it brings a realness of I don't have all of my shit together every
Mhm.
day
Mhm.
either,
Yeah.
but I still continue to show up. And I think that's the important thing. I think my like if we redid anything, I'm really interested to go back and look at those first like 6 or 7 episodes
Mhm.
because the flow since then has been so much better. The feedback has
Mhm.
been so much better, and so it may be worth, like, not going back and re-recording and putting them in there, but actually going in and having, like, an open, true dialogue on those topics and
Mhm.
really bringing out our personality from them. So,
Mhm.
same. I we've learned a lot through what we would and wouldn't do,
Yeah.
but it's also a testament to that journey in all of it, so.
Indeed. Indeed. Outside of what you already have mentioned, what feedback have you received that stuck with you?
What feedback? Yeah, so this one is interesting to me because I think that this is where our personalities kind of like play off of one another because honestly, I don't care what people think. Like, I just don't care what people think. Um, like, you don't need to be mean, and I am a person, so we actually haven't had any like mean comments or anything like that. But um the feedback that has stuck with me really has, again, come from that pivot. Like, that pivot,
Mhm.
I think, was really if we wouldn't have pivoted, I think that would have been the death of this.
Mhm.
But that pivot really was, you guys have so much chemistry. It's clear that you guys know what you're talking about. I love that you guys are honest. If you don't know something, you just say, I don't know. You're honest in the fact that you're just not a well rounded finance and accounting expert.
Mhm.
And so the realness of it has just really landed with me. And again, who it's coming from. Like, I
Mhm.
always take into account, like, who it's coming from. If someone is telling me that, like, we're idiots, I'm like, "Who are you? You don't even know who I am or what I've done, and so you don't bring any merit to the table for me."
Mhm.
Um, so, yeah, I mean, I think the biggest stuff that stuck with me is getting off of the script and really going full-fledged
Yeah.
open combo.
Yeah, people really wanna hear what you and I have to say, which is so refreshing. That it feels great. Um, for me, same thing. I think that's why we pivoted, but there were a few things that I have been thinking about. One, I think I'm really grateful for all the feedback about our chemistry. We definitely have great
Mhm.
chemistry. And we also don't, we have different ways of looking at things. And
Mhm.
I've been told to like lean into that. And in fact, one of my contacts even said like, hey, like some people want to see like some like fights, like not necessarily fights, but they want to see like us uncomfortable with one another. And that,
Good to
oh,
know.
yes, because that it shows more. Well, I think some people really like drama or like to
Me too.
click through like some
Like clickbait, yeah.
yes, but I think so we definitely don't want the extreme of that, but I think we should absolutely lean into looking at things differently and even like have some friendly disagreements of like,
Which
well,
is interesting to me, which is actually interesting to me. I can't remember which episode it was, but we have disagreed,
yeah,
on a
yeah,
couple of things. But I also think that's a testament to the relationship and the friendship that we've built, and
mhm,
that
mhm,
we don't have to agree and we can be respectful to each
mhm,
other and move along, and we're not right or wrong. There's just a different way of doing it. But the one area where I know we have disagreed is cash accounting. I
mm,
am
mhm,
not an advocate for cash accounting.
mhm, mhm,
There is a time and place for it. It does not follow GAAP
mhm,
principles.
mhm,
Um, and so I am not an advocate for it. I am not. You and I have gotten into that
mhm,
discussion.
mhm,
It was a healthy disagreement. You had your reasons for why you like it and why you lean into it in certain situations.
mhm,
I have not found a reason
mhm,
in um and I think a lot of that is being really leaning into the F&P side of things that, you really have to have 13-week cash flow. You can't create a budget on cash.
mhm,
You don't have visibility into ARAP. So, I mean, I can certainly disagree more, but
mhm.
I
But
think
we're
that I think
diplomatic
our
towards each other, and that's why
yeah,
it's
I
like
just think our disagreements are different,
mhm,
and And I also think there's just a respect level of, like, I don't need to come at you and be like, "You're wrong," and make you look like an idiot in front of people.
Yeah,
Like
I think that's why we're friends, is that like we respect the other's reason for something, you know, like okay, they're mostly in this kind of world. I can respect, I still wouldn't do it,
Mhm.
but it's not enough to like make a scene over it. Like I get it. I get it.
Exactly.
But yeah, so anyway, let's be as comfortable as as we already are, and then some for those future kind of different perspectives. But
I
that was
love
an
it.
interesting one. And the other recent one that I told you, which sounds like really was a one-off, and it is my international friend, who was just like, guys, like it is too long, like I can't, like that's way too long, it needs to be like half the time that it is. And I took that like, okay, interesting, but I'm like, after talking with you and hearing that, like, that was the single one comment, that like instance that made that comment, makes me think like maybe he's not as familiar with podcasts. And I know that there are different kinds. Like some are,
Mhm.
you know, 20 minutes and honestly, like I feel like those are great for a one person kind of thing. I've seen some really
Mhm.
great succinct ones to where one person is just like giving you a lot of stuff, but it's super condensed. But yours and my, like these are conversations. There's back and forth. It's, I feel like if
Mhm.
we condensed it into like a 25-minute episode, then we would really lose a lot. Like anybody can go and look at a subject and the
Mhm.
skeleton of it, but like we're trying to offer these like anecdotes and how we've seen these things play out to kind of
Mhm.
to have the listener relate to us more. Otherwise, we're just kind of another like, this is how like finances are, like, and we don't want
Yeah.
to be that, right? So, yeah,
Yeah.
that was.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to note and for us to know, like, our podcast isn't for everyone, and I'm okay
Hmm.
with that. We're not targeting everyone, and um, I'm also not offended. Like, if you think that our podcast is too long and we lose you, there are plenty of podcasts and resources out there. It doesn't offend me. So, but I agree with you in the sense that there's a couple that we've gone a little long. Our goal is always about 45 minutes to an hour. I don't know. I
Hmm.
think we have maybe one or two that's been 45.
Hmm.
Um, but we do try to stick to
Hmm.
that, 45 to 60-minute range. And if we go a little over, I have never felt like it's because we're going off on
Just
like a
dilly
deep
dallying.
tangent. I feel like it
Yeah,
is like stuff that needs to be
that we
put
keep
on the
in there.
table.
On that note, though, my old econ professor had some good insights into, maybe it's for because we do have a long hour. He made a comment of giving like a little preview of kind of as we're going throughout to I guess for the impatient listeners, like that, giving them a little bit of a sneak peek of like some nuggets that we're gonna delve into, you
Mhm.
know, like what's coming up. And maybe
Mhm.
we do this like more in the like in the non-recorded, not the official podcast, but the little intro part, like
Mhm.
maybe we give a little bit of a glimpse of like some of the meat nuggets. But I know that we can't really during our actual conversation, it's hard to kind of say
Mhm.
preview because we wing so much of it. You know,
We do.
to our listeners, we have like a very basic kind of skeleton of potential points, and and we think of our kind of anecdotes from independently, but we go in not having had practice, not really knowing outside of our like minor notes of like touch on this, touch on
Mhm.
this. We're really feeding off of the live conversation of the other person.
Yeah.
And so it is hard to kind of preview some of the things because we don't always know what's going to happen in the hour.
Yep. Well, so for your feedback for people that like want disagreements, we could give them a disagreement now.
Yes.
I'm gonna
To
catch you off guard
Oh
here
my
too.
god,
So,
shit.
uh,
I'm scared.
one of the things that we have gone back and forth on. So, I think every single time we talk, which is we record 3 times a month on pretty much
Mhm,
on average. We don't do the first weekend of the month or the
mhm,
first week of the month, but we do 2 episodes a week when we meet. And I think every single time we've met, we have talked about the topic of guests.
mhm.
And it has
Yes.
been a polarizing topic. Like
Mhm, mhm,
some days I'm in for it, some days I'm out for it. I would say this is one of the areas where the feedback is vehemently yes or vehemently no.
mhm,
And we agree on the fact that it could be valuable in the fact that we are finance professionals. Uh, we are not CPAs. We're not marketing professionals, we know enough to be dangerous, but
mhm,
having conversations with some of these professionals could be really beneficial to not only us, but to our listeners. But the, the, the weird situation that I'm in, I'm kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and I
mhm,
need to be both feet in one way or the other.
mhm,
Is I'm worried about dynamics of 3 people because there's even times where, like, you and I have awkward transitions of, like, I think you're
interruptions.
done and I'm jumping in, or
Yep, yep.
I'm, like, coming in and it doesn't ever affect me, but then you add one more person to that, and it
Mhm,
could, like, really change the dynamics of things,
mhm,
and, it's very important for us for this not to be scripted just because of
mhm,
what we learned. And so we don't want guests to be polished. We don't want there to be like questions that are reviewed before. Like we'll have a rough, like you said, outline. But this is one of the things that I feel like we're having a little bit of push and pull behind the scenes. And again,
mhm,
because we don't really fight, I feel like there's like some like passive push and pull going on like one day one of us wants it and then the next day
mhm,
one of us doesn't want it, and we can't ever seem to be on the same track here.
mhm. Yeah, I agree. And a lot of this has to do like with addressing some of the like feedback and the fears of so what we've heard is essentially some people say that, that they really like our authenticity and us being able to talk about, some of the difficult things that we've seen in our business in our with our past clients, with our past lives working for different businesses.
Mhm.
We can offer kind of the uncomfortable lens of like, hey, this happens. It's a real part of the business. Here's how you
Mhm.
navigate it. Where some people feel like if we have guests, then our priority will be like to basically kiss their ass, and that we're not going to be able to ask the hard questions or or talk about the hard topics. And
Mhm.
from that standpoint, like I disagree because I feel like both you and I'm sassy, you're spicy. Like we have never had issues with kissing
Mhm.
other people's asses.
No.
We're very,
Yeah.
very transparent with our circles, and I think that's why our circles, are very close with us. And then,
Mhm.
those who can't jive with that are not in our circles.
Yep.
And we're very black and white with that. So from my perspective, like I don't feel like we would lose the authenticity. I would be super curious to ask those challenging questions of like, I've
Mhm.
seen it this way from my perspective. Tell it to me, like justify this as an owner because I never understood this from your life or something like that.
Mhm.
I could see some fun conversations there. Um but one thing and I'm not sold either way right now. I do have to say that I get excited about bringing certain people on board because I'm like, "Oh my
Mhm.
god, this could be so like interesting for our listeners." Um
I
but
think timing too. Like that's the other thing that we're trying to figure out. And
yes.
like,
Mhm.
is it something that we do once a month? And is it something because we do want to preserve the fact that it is our podcast. And
Mhm.
there are some great podcasts out there that that's all they do is interview others. But finding that balance of bringing value in
Mhm.
bringing value in that is not only valuable for us, but also valuable for the listeners, not just bringing people on to bring people on. And you and I are so aligned on this that this podcast was built and designed for our listeners
Mhm.
so that they don't have to go through the same mistakes that we did. They can make their own mistakes.
Mhm.
They can learn from ours. They can laugh at ours, like that they can find humor in it and just like normalcy. And like this stuff really does happen. And you're not the only one. Like that
Mhm.
will help you sleep at night. But people coming on to sell their book or to sell their services, to sell, and that's not only for people coming on. You and I don't even do that. I mean,
Mhm.
all of our
Mhm.
listeners, they can find us where we've mentioned where they can find us. They have heard our drop, but we don't round out our episodes with if you need bookkeeping, please call Outgrow Accounting and Finance.
Mhm.
Or like,
Mhm.
it's like they know where to find us. They will come to us. This is not a sales pitch. It is truly a conversation as a resource to our listeners. And I think that that is like the one point that both you and I are on the same
Yes.
train track from
Mhm.
inception, that this is not a platform for people.
Yes, right. Like it is not a platform to sell. Absolutely. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And that's why, like, even if we do bring in folks, like, I don't necessarily want like the top exec of blah blah blah, like really kind of doing a promo for them. Like, no, like I am interested in everything in between, you know, the founder, the people on the ground, like anybody who can add to the conversation, because there are so many different layers to it. But you touched on a great one. Selling a Either selling a product or service of somebody's definitely not going to see that on our podcast. And then or also selling um, the right way of doing something. Um, because that's another thing is like, you know, both of us have been poached by several people who know that we have podcasts who want to be a guest on it,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to be like, we really have to weed them out and be and really even if we do end up taking anybody on and we don't know them, like that's even an odd situation for me. But I would want to meet with them several times before to even see if we like
Mm-hmm.
align. Like because if we don't know that somebody's going to use our platform and then they start selling their stuff, that's definitely not the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Another person who approached me was really trying, you know, to sell his success story of one way of going about finances and you know the stock market and blah blah blah, and how he made success for himself. But if I ever, you know, brought him in, I would not pose it as like I would want then like maybe him and then other alternative ways, because I'm never like, great that that worked out for you and that's amazing. And I see like his whole point was when there's
Mm-hmm.
risk, there's reward. I took these huge risks and I got this huge reward. But that is not the right solution for everybody on a personal
Mm-hmm.
or business level. And so I don't want to be blindsided by like somebody else's message that we don't align with. And so so yeah, very, very, we're very, if anybody is to come in, we'll be very specifically making sure that they're not trying to sell one specific idea or a product or service or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. So it's still a work in progress. And for the listeners that have followed us and been faithful to this conversation, we want to give you guys a chance to really put your vote to the test and let us know what you want, because again we do this for you guys, and so we want to know, like, do you guys really want guests, and if we bring on guests, what kind of guests? And so that is one of the things that we're also working on in the background is how do we get involvement from you guys and so that you guys feel like you are a part of this and are getting what you're hoping to get out of it. And so our goal is in the next couple episodes to be able to present something where you guys can go to um, something like a Google form where you can fill out, your vote, and then we can start making something happen based on what it is you guys truly want.
A-
So
And on that note, I don't know that it will be available at that same timing, but what I have been working on in the background, as Cash has mentioned, we have different roles behind the scenes,
Mhm.
and Cash and her hubby are really kind of jamming with Riverside and everything that has to do with it, the editing, the blasting out to the different platforms, watching the stats, all of that. I have put a pin in it, but am taking the pin out. I've been working on our website, and essentially, I would like to have a place to invite you guys for any, like, where we can actually stay in communication, through this podcast. If you guys have questions or feedback about the podcast, or if you want to, look at the prior library, or whatever, like, I'm working on having a place for you guys to go to, so the future interactions, or voting forms and all of that will be on our
Mhm.
website. Not sure if it'll be available in this few weeks that we're talking about, but that is the goal. That is something I'm trying to work on behind the scenes. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Go ahead.
We do have some fun episodes planned. A lot of we've never really talked about how our episodes come to fruition, I don't think, but a lot of our episodes come to fruition based on these conversations. Like, we'll have a podcast recording, and we do, because we're finance gals, we do everything in spreadsheets. So we do have a spreadsheet where we keep like notes or topics, and we'll have a conversation, and one of us will go say, like, I really like that we touched on EBITDA, but now I want to do a whole episode on it.
Mhm,
And um like we said, it is very unscripted. We do a scripted intro, a scripted outro, and then we just kind of put bullets in there of like, these are the things that I really want to talk about. These are the things that we feel like are very important for you guys to understand on this topic. And so um, we do have kind of a rough list right now. Um, some of them are listener submitted messy business dilemmas, would you rather business scenarios, hopefully from you guys. Um, Guest submitted questions for us, possibly guest episodes. And then we have some themes that we want to run with. Family business. Kids can be in businesses. When do you put them in businesses? How do you do it? When someone wants out of a business,
mhm,
what does that look like? How do you do it? Fairness, affordability. When you get family involved, there's a lot of dynamics, and
mhm,
so we want to run with that. Um, Business health series. So we've talked about all of the financial statements, but profitability and busyness. What's the difference? Being sellable.
mhm,
A lot of the businesses I work with are in the service industry. It's a very hot market right now in the service industry. And a lot of times those buyers are looking at your business well before you're even thinking of selling.
mhm,
And so getting to a place where we're talking about not just getting ready to sell the business, but being ready at a moment's notice.
mhm.
Um, Communication, that comes up in every single episode. So we kind of have a few episodes that we can talk about on, communication. I do, you and I have talked about this too. I have a little bit more experience having sat as a CEO, having had to work with other departments,
Mhm,
but I really do want to bring light into some of those other areas. You know, uh you really like the operator tension, the operator aspect of it, but I really want to dive into sales. I really want to dive
mhm,
into marketing. I really
mhm,
want to dive into procurement and
mhm,
in some of these other areas that maybe we take a little bit a little bit of the weight off of the finance side, we can still bring light to it. But these are all really important areas of the business, but we also need to make sure that you're able to speak to those comfortably as well. Um, so those are just the things that are running through our minds. We don't have a hard set list of what we're going to talk about, but we do have kind of topics that either people bring to us or they just kind of originate in conversation. So, on top of kind of the, organic ones that come to mind, your listener or colleague will be probably listening a little closer. But we framed this on the things that people don't talk about, won't talk about, etc. And so we do have a few episodes that we have kind of ideated around that we either are not brave enough to talk about yet, or they're still very raw because they're things that we've experienced, or things that have personally affected us because of what we've experienced. And so, a few of those topics are when partners don't trust each other, um, when founders or CEOs, leaders are the problem, when family payroll gets messy. We've touched on payroll, we touched on distributions in the last episode, but payroll can get very messy and we could really dig deep into that. Um, this one is a very close one to me, but when businesses are not actually worth what the owner thinks they're
Mhm.
worth and how you navigate those waters, when finance people become the bad guy. So, these are some of the ones that we have been ideating on like we really want to dig into these because it is really a promise to going past the balance sheet, peeking behind the curtain, but also making sure that we're protecting the people and situations that we experienced,
Mhm.
um, and ensuring that we're coming from a place of professionalism and compassion while also being able to divulge some of the dirty deeds that go down in
Mhm.
all businesses because all of these topics are relevant to almost all small businesses, but how we go about them is super important to us. We do have some time, and so one of the things that I proposed to you was not only kind of giving a forward look, but getting into one of these ones that we haven't been a
Brave
little
enough.
bit courageous enough to talk about yet or go into. And if you're willing, I think we should go into like when founders or leaders are the problem.
Yes, let's do it. The I'll start off with an anecdote from my end and just kind of a high level lesson that I've learned in, you know, now working with a very large spectrum of guests, sorry, not guests, of clients. Um, and with this one client a few years ago, I was asking myself, I was in bewilderment of like exactly whom did I just sign up to
Yeah.
occupy a large chunk of my time with. Um and I spent probably a year before I fired that client and they fired me back. Um um It was I spent a year and a half about, like, just puzzled, asking the question of, like, how is it that these people got to own a business? And what I have learned is that money will buy you anything, and and that means that some really unqualified people are either founders, owners, they might be bosses, they might actually be managers, but this is the situation that I walked into. So, to put it, um, diplomatically, this family, it was a whole family, um, there are issues outside of the business that are not
Mhm.
resolved. And this has to do with violence, anger, substance abuse, like everything under the sun. And so this family got to be a pretty large business owner. I won't name the state. I won't name anything. And I want to be very careful even in how I describe this because it's such a dangerous person or family. But in any case, kind of a situation of honestly great business ideas outside of the can't function as a person type of thing. The
Mhm.
I saw like, okay, I can kind of see why you landed here because one of the individuals had really great ideas, like not necessarily an understanding of how to implement them, but like, here's
Mhm.
what I want to see, and had good articulation of the dream, right? But the why the business is failing, and that is my assessment, my guess that it still is because essentially, there's toxicity, like the dream and all of that, that's great, but, there's
Mhm.
this, and then there's the actual implementation of, "Okay, let's take that dream and let's figure out how to make it come true," all the logistics that come with it. In some of our previous episodes, we talked about how typically these are different roles, You have
Mhm.
the one who's kind of looking at high level into the future, but then you have individuals who are responsible for kind of taking the idea and figuring out exactly how to implement it on the ground. But
Mhm.
in this scenario, there was basically the founder, the leadership was in charge of actually like managing people, managing different departments. This person was like their entire day and week was with calendar events. I'm going to be a part of this conversation, I'm going to be a part of that conversation. But where I saw it failing is, this person had no business wasting their executive hourly cost in some of these smaller team
Mhm.
meetings of like, oh, here's how we're going to do it. And before the big boss sees it, there's a lot of back and forth to figure it out. But essentially what I witnessed was there was such abuse. It was mental and emotional abuse of like a can't remember, I want to say like 30 to 50 people in that company, and they were all they were being yelled at. Essentially, like this leader would catch somebody in the hall and start shaming them, yelling profanities, shaming them in front of the whole team and saying, "You are not worth, your title." Just like these personal attacks. And it was the hardest thing for me. I was, assigned to work with their finance person there, and this founder wanted to stick this person in a position that this person didn't belong in a position where they would fail, and essentially is like, now you do this, and then started punishing them for failing, and I
Mhm.
was in such a hard position of like, at what point do I stand up and say like, you can't treat people like that, and I'm not going to be a part of this, and it was a very, very hard position for me because at that point I was also representing, I was not working, end to end, directly with the client. I was working with a
Mhm.
firm that got me together with that client. And so I need to keep a certain professional face representing, this other organization. And honestly, I think I waited too long at a certain point when
Mhm.
there was blatant emotional abuse of this one person that I was working directly with, that like I couldn't ignore it. And at a certain point that abuse led to me, and that's when it for sure was over. And when dishonesty started being a part of the conversation, this is the one thing that in addition to the emotional abuse, um dishonesty about like how we got here, shifting the blame. And when I started like, oh, dishonesty is now going to be a part of our dynamics, I'm out,
Mhm.
because then I understood like at this point like I cannot make this person happy, and anything that I say like if we're resorting to lying, I'm never going to satisfy the needs, and nor do I want to. So for me, yeah, for my biggest kind of impactful situation was where the founder, great ideas, like I can't lie, great ideas, but stopping them from even coming to fruition because the staff is like frightened of this of this family, and the family was very prominent in that town, so they like basically they felt like they, if they leave, they're an enemy, if they stay, like they kind of were, felt like they were in quicksand, like they want to get out but they can't. It kept on pulling them in, and it's like, well, maybe this, at least we know what to expect with this monster, you know. But in any case, how about you? What's your
No,
story?
I would say the same. Like, and here's the interesting thing that it sounds like it's like the common theme. Like
Mhm.
entrepreneurs are brilliant. They really are.
Mhm.
Like true entrepreneurs that see a need, and I wouldn't privy myself as an entrepreneur. Like I started a business, yes, but I really had the backing of being in a business and going through that. Like having a true vision of something that's niche and really being, first to market, like that's what I see as an entrepreneur. Brilliant people,
Mhm.
terrible leaders. Terrible leaders.
Mhm.
And I say that because to get a to take an idea, to take ideation to commercialization, even if we're talking about a business,
Mhm.
a lot has to go into that. And they do such a great job in doing it. Where it starts to break down is when people come in. And the reason that I think that they're terrible leaders is they don't know how to release. They don't know how
Mm.
to see their dream in someone else's hands,
Mhm.
or they can't seem to um they can't seem to share the spotlight. Like they've built this, why should someone else have
Mhm.
any sort of
Mhm.
credit
Mhm.
to anything? And so similarly, very similar situation. I saw this was a company that I contracted for. I came in as their finance leader, and I saw the same behaviors. Entrepreneur built a very successful business and was still sitting as CEO president, and um, they were in transition of like wanting to appoint someone else,
Mhm.
but that transition ended up falling apart because they in that like they had like it was like a 30, 60, 90, 180-day
Mhm.
transition in how
Mhm.
they were handing off responsibilities. Very standard when you're talking about C-suite positions. Um, but they just couldn't relinquish, and they found it so the person getting ready to take over found it so difficult and unbearable because they couldn't do it as good, or when they brought an
Mhm.
idea to the table, they were literally told it was that's a stupid idea, that will never work, that will
Mhm.
never fly. And I remember the first board meeting that this person coming in to take over, they were supposed to run the board as if they were,
Mhm.
sitting as the CEO.
Mhm.
And they just got monopolized over. Like the founding leader just took over and basically said this is how it's gonna go. And and so very similar situation. And I don't know what it is. You get to a point where you want to step out, but no one is good enough. And so
Mhm.
when I look through a lot of small businesses, it's very similar situations. And someone had this great idea, got it off the ground, um, but just wasn't able to pass it off. And ultimately it becomes a barrier
Mhm.
because um And I I always relate business back to my personal life, but I look at it in terms of my kids, you
Mhm.
know? No one can be as good of a mom to them as I can. At least I believe that.
Mhm.
But there's also a point, when they turn 18 or launch out, get married, someone else is going to take care of them.
Mhm.
And I have to relinquish that. And you see a lot of parent-child relationships break down at that transition point too, because they want this freedom to test out life and to spread their wings, or they get married and they start their own traditions or have their own
Mhm.
lives
Mhm.
that mom and dad just can't accept. And it's no different in the business world. It's like
Mhm.
you built this beautiful thing, now pass it on to let someone else run with it. And that
Mhm.
has always been, my thing in building my business is, and
Mhm.
when I've left businesses, fired myself or
Mhm. Mhm.
or what have you. Um it's because I took it as far as I could take it.
Mhm.
And I set the pride aside, the ego aside to say, there is someone else that can come along and take what I've done and do better. It doesn't diminish anything that I've done.
Mhm.
It doesn't diminish anything that I didn't do.
Mhm.
Um, but they get to build on it.
Yeah. To similar point to not having that trust to relinquish it. But I remember some time ago you were telling me about a situation, and I don't know if it was a client or one of your past lives or something where, okay, like basically there you were put into a position or there was an exec position made, but yet essentially like it was you were still being controlled by the founders, like, "Well, you're gonna pivot
Mhm.
this way," and so you're like, "Well, what why am I even fucking here?" Like,
Yeah,
that's the
exactly.
point is, like, if you are going to relinquish that control, then you have to trust the person in that seat, and they
Mhm.
will make different judgment calls, and that you want that. You want to hire somebody who is smarter than you, who is more, equipped for this position, and so with that, that means you really got to trust them to do things differently, not the way that you would do it. And so I've
Mhm.
seen it, and I don't remember if it was from the conversation with you, but I feel like I've seen it play out in plenty of different scenarios of just that, like where the exec is really a puppet, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. No, I see that all the time. One question that I would ask, and there's no right answer, there's multiple ways, but when you have experienced this or when you experience it in your next season, how do you address it? Like what is the best way? Like how would you address a founder or a CEO? If you're a CEO of a mid to large company, you typically have a board.
Hmm.
And in some situations, and a great I might get some here's some juiciness for you.
Yes.
This literally just came to mind. I am gonna name drop. And here's the caveat. I love this brand. I should have stock in this brand because I frequent this brand uh multiple times a week. But here's a perfect example of leaders not relinquishing.
Hmm.
Starbucks.
Hmm.
So if you look back on Starbucks history and you do any type of research on Howard Schultz, he was brilliant. He sat as their CEO. The first time was from 1986 to 2000.
Hmm.
Then he came back as CEO in 2008 to 2017, and then he sat as interim in 2022 to 2023. So all this to say, and he sat on the board for most of this time, and he has I forget the name, but he's got a legacy board title, emeritus. board director or something like
Mhm.
that. Anyways, so he kept coming back, and the argument, if you look back, this is a a pretty a pretty controversial issue because every time a CEO stepped in those in between, when he originally stepped down in 2000, someone else stepped in. I apologize. I don't know who it was, but um, he was sitting on the board of directors. I actually think he was chairman of the board,
Mm.
if I'm not mistaken. But the CEO could not do as well as he could. He
Mhm.
just it was a berating of them every single time. Like, I could do better. I could do better. He finally did come back in 2008 and felt like he could do better. Again, sat for 9 years, stepped off, and, someone else came in, and then again, when they were in this midst of needing someone,
Mhm.
he came in as interim CEO,
Mhm.
and a lot of that second seating, there was a lot of that type of, vernacular of,
Mhm.
"Well, I'm just gonna come back in because no one can do it as good as me," or,
Mhm.
"I built this to what it is, and so I can build it to what it needs to be," and so that if our listeners hear anything, go look up that story because it is a perfect example of not knowing when to step aside. Here is one thing that I will give him credit for.
Mhm.
Again, going back to that entrepreneurial great brain. Starbucks was one of the very first companies to create an app with a bank. And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
they make so much of their money on you putting funds into the app
Gift cards, yep.
and
Mhm.
it's sitting there. They're
Mhm.
building interest on
Yep.
it, they're investing with it. If
Mhm.
you ever go look on the balance in the app, and they're a publicly traded company, so you are certainly welcome to go do that. Um, they are using that as investment
Mhm.
and to propel the business forward. Howard had a part in that.
Mhm.
Brilliant,
Mhm.
brilliant idea. And now there's many companies that do it. But to then come in and say no CEO can do what I did is very diminishing
Mhm.
to what the brand can do. And when you bring that type of negativity around the brand, you have a lot of issues now with people wanting to work for them
Mhm. Mhm.
and things like that. And since I'm harping on them because why I'm already down this route, I might as well just keep digging my hole. But as leaders and founders, another huge thing that I see is do as I say, not as I do.
Mhm.
And their current leader, Brian Nichols, was there was huge controversy when he was brought in. He was
Mhm.
another brilliant leader. He came from Chipotle, uh, built that brand, did a great job building that brand.
Mhm.
But when he came into Starbucks, Starbucks is headquartered in Seattle. If you have never been to Seattle, where the original Starbucks is, it is a very special place.
Mhm.
Um, and it is really the hub. You go to Seattle and there truly is a Starbucks on all 4 corners, every
Mhm.
corner you go to.
Mhm.
It is their pride and joy.
Yeah.
It's their claim to fame upon many others. But he was not gonna leave SoCal,
Mhm.
and they created an office for him in SoCal. He's flying the private jet from SoCal to Seattle multiple times a week. But yet his people had to be in office. They took work from home
Mhm.
away
Mhm.
or a level of it away. And so when you start to see founders having different rules for themselves than they do for their employees, they lose credibility, and that's a major sign it's time for them to step down or step away. But all of this to say, my original question to
Mhm.
you is how would you handle this situation in this? Because in the case of Starbucks, they have a board.
Mhm.
So when they start to see things going awry or their dividends are not what they're supposed to be, they're going to start making some votes that are going to make a change. Um, some of these smaller companies, the voting rights, the people on the board are strategically placed
Mhm.
in a
Mhm.
way that you will get the vote that you want.
Mhm. So, in to make sure I'm answering the right question is like, what would I say in a situation where like I am the CEO, let's say, but I'm still being kind of a puppet, right?
Yeah.
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 So I think in my past lives, and like basically, I'm a work in progress. There's still so much that I am learning about myself, things that I'm ditching as, characteristics that I want to keep, things that I don't. And in this last year, I've been finding that I have been more brave than I have been ever in the past to to just kind of speak my mind about things. So I think in the past, I probably would have been like, "Oh, okay, if you're commanding me to do this, okay, let's do this your way, whatever." And then when that fails, basically be a part of the blaming party,
Mhm.
where now where I've learned, like, where I am confident in what I can bring to the table. I know where my talents lie. If I feel like somebody is steering me in a direction that I don't think is right, then I am more vocal now, like, "Hey, so and so, like, you hired me for this position. That means you have to trust me. I appreciate this exploratory area, and if it's an area worth exploration, then I'll say, like, I will add this to my list, but I need you to trust me and my way of going about this, and actually show them like what my plan is, and if I believe that it's better than how they're trying to control me, then kind of lay it out, but come with the
Mhm.
data, not just like, hey, don't tell me what to do, that's not that conversation is not going to go well, but being like, hey, I appreciate your hands-on approach, but like, it's an opportunity cost for you. Here's why you called me in.
Mhm.
I'm looking at this path, and until I'm done with this analysis, I don't want to spend time on this other thing because I feel like I'm on the right path here. So I've
Mhm.
grown a thicker skin and more of a pair of balls, I guess, in talking back to the executives and being like, not talking back though, sass does appear sometimes, but but essentially, kind of standing my ground. If this is an area of my expertise, I am way, way more brave to have an uncomfortable conversation and say, "Please sit this one out. You have asked,
Mhm.
you've directed your help to me for a reason, and here's my method of going about this." But like this is all in theory and of hypothetical, and I feel a
Mhm.
certain way about my worth, about like my but it is so much harder in practice, and more than anybody, even some of these latest decisions that I've made in my life where I
Mhm.
wasn't willing to put up with certain things, it still came with like, okay, me being at my absolute like, not saying it enough in time, not saying it
Mhm.
enough, suppressing it, suppressing it, suppressing it. Okay, now my world is blowing up, and unless something changes,
Mhm.
like, I'm gonna start talking. And so, more than anybody that it's one thing in reality, but when you are in a specific situation, and it also, if there's pressure of it's not just one person that you have to convince, it's maybe one person who maybe they're the puppet of the board or whatever, like there's such
Mhm.
different dynamics there, and it's hard to navigate, and there's really no clear answer. But I think kind of standing up for, hey, I feel confident in this. I'm the expert in this. Please allow me to do my job. Kind of like
Yeah.
creating those boundaries, speaking up for those boundaries. How about
Yeah.
yourself? What are your thoughts?
No, same. I probably like you always do such a good job in like positioning it as like a strength, but I probably vocalize things more than I probably should on most occasions.
Oh, I do too. Like
Yeah,
that's
I
one of
think I
my
get to a
weaknesses too.
point of like I hold it in. I hold it in, hold it
Hmm.
in, hold it in, hold
Hmm.
it in, and then I'm just like, "Oh, I'm all done."
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
there's
Exactly.
and then once I'm all done, there's no going back. Like, it's just like the decision has been made. But
Hmm.
one thing that I would for the leaders out there that are listening, that are, contemplating like, I really want to step out. I really want to step aside or let the new blood come in. Like I would challenge them to really assess if that's what they want and if that's what they can do.
Mhm.
Because I think that's where the real root problem starts is that there's this fantasy of I'll step away and I can, I can golf, I can fish, I can have all this freedom or whatever. And then the reality of someone coming in. And, I don't really know many leaders that come in with this mentality of like, yeah, now I'm going to take over and be like most leaders are compassionate of like I get to steward what has already been built. I get to build upon what has been built. Um, you know, I'm picking it up better than they're leaving it better than they found it and my job is now to leave it better than I found it. And I, I, if you if you are a leader contemplating this decision, I would look through it through that lens. Like, are you truly ready? But then also like how you're treating people because in those situations, in those toxic places, like, I can't picture myself going back to the corporate world.
Mhm.
I can never say
Mhm.
never because you just don't know what opportunities are
Mhm.
out there or
Mhm.
what lies ahead, but I just can't picture myself going back and not having the level of freedom that I have now to make the decisions I want. But
Mhm.
knowing now what I didn't know then
Mhm.
is just again like how you treat people. Like if you are leading in a fear-based way and
Mhm.
people are staying because they're so fearful of what's going to happen or
Mhm.
safety or like I man, that's a difficult one for me. Like I don't know how you sleep at night.
Right. Or even in the example that, like, not to bash on the prior CEO of Starbucks, but um the fact, the comment of nobody can do it better and that kind of thing, like, a part of a good, like, if you really have left the position, like, part of m- my leaving my positions and you leaving yours, I know we do such a good diligence of, like, we really want the next person to succeed, and even if you're not even leaving a company, you want to empower the people on your team. So uh, those of us who, I don't want to say us because I don't do this, but uh, but saying those of you to our audience seems kind of attacky, but nevertheless, some people feel like they will have job security if they hog all the information, all the tribal knowledge, all of that stuff. And that,
Mhm.
I've never had a fear of that because, like, trust me, there's plenty of stuff to do. Okay, you steal this part of the job from me. Great. You've alleviated now all of these different areas that I know need attention that I've never had attention. Like, I've never had that fear. And so I have always been such a proponent of elevating those in the department. So, like, that for that CFO to say nobody can do it as better, well, that to me says that he wasn't doing a due diligence as a leader to prepare those under him to
Yeah.
step into those shoes. Like, it's
Yeah.
not just like me, like, yeah, you have to, it's, you're not just carrying the whole company. There are people, there's a whole department helping you, and you have to kind of elevate them up and have to, they're helping the organization, so you help them to step into those other shoes. So yeah, that's a big one for me, is not hogging things, but elevating others. And if you feel like you can bring something better to the table, well, then that gosh darn interim CEO time, I hope, was positioned to then train somebody else to be as awesome as him, not just like,
Yeah.
oh, well, I'll fill in this gap and then, I'll be around the next time you guys need me. Like, no, part of that is like
Yeah.
helping, the organization propel forward. So,
Yeah, I think like in a nutshell, what you're saying, which I also agree with, is if you are in a leadership position, and again, we could talk about CEO, we could talk about supervisor. I don't
mhm,
care anywhere in the middle. Like if you leave and things fail,
mhm,
that's also a representation of you.
yeah.
Yeah, like just you did not use the resources that were given to you. And so it's not really their fault it failed, you have a play in that
Hmm.
as well.
Yeah,
So,
agreed.
um, we probably went a little bit deeper than we had
On the
planned, but
side tangent.
we should probably start to land the plane
Oh,
unless you
yeah,
wanna add anything
I
else.
don't.
Okay,
I'm done.
so our fun question before we head out, what movie or show can you rewatch endlessly?
Yes. There are two. So first I'll say any of the Star Treks, and I'm not talking about like the original ones from the 60s. Those are fun to look at and just look at what kind what kind of different shows we had back in the 60s where there's a lot of music and a lot of like dramatic faces but not a lot of dialogue. I can't sit through those. Like they're hilarious, but like you have to like be on some substance to really to like to really sit through those. But any of the Star Treks, you know, starting from TNG, I know I'm losing you, but there
No.
must be somebody in TNG, Deep Space Nine. Those are my two favorites from the from Star Trek. Um, there have been some new ones that have come out from Star Trek as well. I'm not a fan of the newest one with the Academy. Enough said about that one, but that's the only one that I don't like. So Star Trek all the way. And my husband and I have like we try to take a break of like a year or two before we start them all over again because we kind of just do like a marathon. But then the other one that is specifically me, like Star Trek, I have my husband to thank for getting me into the sci-fi game. I used to not like sci-fi at all, but now I'm like, holy crap, sci-fi is where it's at. Like this is where, you know, the deep questions come in. Like, how could I not engage myself in this? But one thing that's personally just me, Frasier and Cheers. They're my favorite two shows, and I will watch them like seriously, like, it's just running in the background. If I'm not listening to Tool in the background, then I just have either Frasier or Cheers, I alternate, that show is running in the background because and you'll my husband will see me, like, I'll just be like, sometimes I'll be, like, walking, I have a little mini iPad here, and so I have, like, you know, it's playing here, and, I'm walking into the kitchen with there or something, you know, "Oh, Frasier." I'm talking to Frasier, and he's like, "Oh my god, there she goes again." I also take this to, like, if I'm getting my nails done and I never want people to talk to me, so I'm, like, you know, in my headphones. Sometimes I pretend that I'm in my headphones and I'm not, but
Yeah.
sometimes I'm actually, like, I whip this out and I'm like, I'm laughing at Frasier, and people are like, "Oh my
Oh my
god."
gosh, that's
But yes, Frasier and Cheers, like, I could talk about that show for days. It makes me so happy. It's so funny, it's so original, and, I need to stop talking about it. How about you?
I love it. No, I love it. I I just am not I'm not a show person. So my husband was a Seinfeld person. So he watched
Mm,
Seinfeld and I was Friends. So
I
we did
hate
have
it.
that war in our house, like Seinfeld Friends. But growing up, like it's so fun like seeing your kids because growing up I used to love Boy Meets World. Like it was like
Oh,
the
yes!
thing.
Oh my
My
god.
kids are rewatching it and think it's
No
like the
way.
best thing. And so I'm like watching it with them. I'm like, this is such a good show. They don't make shows like this anymore.
No, they
Okay,
don't.
but what is actually on repeat if
Mhm, mhm.
I'm gonna sound like a deranged Yahoo.
What's
2020.
Oh,
I
like the
murder
2020, like,
like
okay.
murder mystery, like I I just
Interesting, interesting, okay.
AJ comes in all the time. He's like, "Oh my gosh," because I have to have something going in the background like you. Like I'm not like when I'm working, like I'm not sitting in just like a quiet room. So I'll have like something playing in the background or like a podcast going. A lot of times it's like something like 2020 or like murder mystery.
Interesting.
And so I tell him all the time, like, play your cards right because I could commit the perfect murder and get away with it.
Oh my
But
god, that's funny.
I'm not a movie person, but I am really enjoying watching Boy Meets World with my kids as they're rewatching it.
Yeah, oh
Just
man, what a flashback. I used to love that, and do you remember Mr. Belvedere? That was a good one too.
Yes.
That one, it reminds me, like, it's all in the same kind of,
Yep.
and then, you're probably too young for the Wonder Years, but the Wonder Years,
Nope, I
no?
do.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. And just,
Oh.
yeah, all the stuff that they're, like, rewatching now, and I'm just like, "What good sh" they do not make good shows like this
I
anymore.
so agree. It's so nice that the kids don't mind because my stepkid, like, she made such fun of Frasier and Cheers because they are so outdated. And I have to admit, it took me a little bit to get into Cheers, probably because I hated Diane so much. She's one of the main characters, and I like was just bursting with anger. Um, but then I
That's
got
funny.
into it, and my stepdaughter is like, oh my god, like it's not crisp and clear and it's not funny, like, and she doesn't get any of the references and things like that, but I'm like, "Oh my god, they don't make TV like that anymore."
They don't.
And some of yeah. Mhm.
We do family movie night on Fridays, and we, like, do, like, the old school movies,
Oh,
thank you,
nice.
Disney Plus, but
Mhm.
we do, like, all the old school movies, like, my kids have we last weekend, we watched Heavyweights, which is
What is
just,
that?
like it's so old, like, they wouldn't even be allowed to play it now because of, like, the comments in it, but, like, it's like the kids go to fat camp, and, like, it just my kids got a hoot out of it, and, like, what else have we watched? Like, Cool Runnings
Yeah, I don't
and,
want either.
like, Space like, the old Space Jam. They just get a hoot out of all these old movies. The Goonies,
Oh,
they
yes,
think
I
that's the best
remember the
movie ever.
Goonies.
Oh my gosh.
Yes,
So,
yes.
yes, we have introduced my kids to the classics of just, like, this is what but they said that too, like, when we first started doing it, they're like, "When was this made, in the olden days?" And I'm like, what exactly is the olden days?
Our days,
Because like,
apparently.
use your words carefully here, sir friend.
Um, hand Oh, oh, yes, but, I agree with your comment of, like, some things are so not PC anymore, but, like, there's just a certain, like, nostalgia of, like, "Oh,
Mhm,
yeah, this is when, like, we were more, like, in your face about these things," or whatever. It's such a cultural shift, like,
mhm.
you're definitely, like, going back and, like, "Oh, yeah, we don't live in those days anymore," but some
Nope.
of it is so refreshing, you're like, "Oh, it's been a while since since we could freely say that and
Yeah,
not,
exactly,
yeah. Some of it is bad, but some of
exactly.
it is just like not a big deal.
I love it, I love it. Well, friends, thanks for indulging us. Thanks for following along for 20 episodes. We've
Woo!
hit the major milestone, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Thank you too.
So, for episode 20, we were not just looking back. We are asking what this show should become next. Should we bring in guests? What topics do you want us to tackle? What messy business conversations are happening behind closed doors that you wish more people talked about? Vote in the polls, comment on LinkedIn, send us your ideas, and keep an eye on the website because we are building a more interactive home for all of this. The next 20 episodes should not just come from us, they should come from real questions people are already wrestling with. If this episode resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with anybody who could benefit from these discussions. Thank you for going past the balance sheet with us. Until next time.